Alright, episode 5, Quarantine Cooks. Today we're going to make a BLT and I'm going to show you how to not fuck it up. But first, I got a fucking logo and it's sick. My good buddy Kemp made this for me and I absolutely love it. As a thank you, I'm going to throw his Instagram down there, I think, for the rest of the video. If you need anything, holler at him. He's the best. Unbelievable work. Thank you so much, Kemp. Alright, BLTs. So the key to making a BLT sandwich, don't overthink it. We're not using ciabatta, we're not using sourdoughs or grape breads, but they get too crusty, get too crunchy, and you don't want that here. You want good old-fashioned white bread. Wonder Bread, I don't give a fuck. Get some white bread. Don't use your fancy shit. That's not the sandwich for this. The other thing, lettuce. Let's talk about lettuce. I like using iceberg lettuce because it tastes like fucking nothing. All it is crunchy, and that's what you want on this sandwich. If you have to use romaine, only use like the bottom half of it so you get that nice crunch. Throw the top half out. But for this, I like using iceberg lettuce. Mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is the only condiment that should go on a BLT. If you have to, mix some hot sauce in with it. But don't be adding fucked up mustards or anything like that. Again, not the sandwich. And tomatoes. Oh man, I wish it was tomato season, but it's not. So we're just gonna use something we can get from the grocery store. And then once my garden comes in, I'll make another one with some awesome garden tomatoes. Okay, let's get into it. I'll show you how it's done. Alright, BLTs. It's a goddamn classic, so let's not fuck it up. Alright, let's start with the B. So I have some slab bacon here that I'm gonna cut up pretty thin. Not like out of a package bacon thin, but thin enough so that it can get crispy when we cook it, and so when you take a bite out of your sandwich it doesn't pull the rest of your toppings out. So I kind of found it easy to use a really sharp knife and make one guide cut from end to end and then come back in and finish it off, but you do you. So once we have our bacon cut up, we're going to come in and put it on a tinfoil lined baking sheet. All that tinfoil is going to do is just make it easier to clean up later. So the edges of the baking sheet run hotter than the middle, so if you have any thick boys, throw those guys up top or on the end and they'll get nice and crisp. Then once you have all your bacon laid out, it's going to go into a cold oven. Not a preheated oven, a cold oven. Once the bacon's in there, turn that baby on to 400 degrees and let it go. Alright, so keep an eye on this, but it took like 20 to 25 minutes to get to this point. So I'm just going to take this out and give these guys a flip. As you can see, those pieces at the top of the sheet are cooking faster than everyone else. So I'm going to come in and just rearrange everything here. Now that this bacon is shrunk down, we can fit more pieces around the perimeter. So I'm going to take those two thick boys and put them in the middle and put everything else around the edge. Once you're happy with that, toss it back into that 400 degree oven until they reach your desired level of crispiness. How far you cook your bacon is completely up to you, but if you cook it soft, I will judge you. Alright, now we're going to work on the lettuce. So I like using shredded iceberg lettuce for this. It just gives it a nice crunch and doesn't have a lot of overpowering green flavor. So all we're going to do is just cut that thing in half at the core and then chop that core out. Just grab your knife and start cutting this thing as thin as you can get it, and then just keep going until you're like halfway through. And this is enough for about, I'd say 2 sandwiches. Alright, now we're going to take a crack at the tomato. So just cut the end off and start slicing your tomato. If you have a dull knife, use a serrated knife, it'll work a bit better. But similar to that bacon, I like slicing this more on the thin side. I just like being able to stack them up tall, and then when you take a bite of your sandwich, again, it just doesn't pull everything else out. Alright, now this is very important to me, and if you don't do this, you fucked up your BLT. So you need to hit these guys with salt and pepper before they go on the sandwich. And you know what? As a matter of fact, for every sandwich for the rest of your life that you make that has tomatoes on it, hit those tomatoes with salt and pepper before they go on there. Got it? Okay, cool, moving on. Okay, so now that bacon's done and it's looking awesome. I'm just going to transfer this over to a smaller sheet tray lined with some paper towel. Then I'm just going to come in and blot some of the grease off the top with another paper towel. You can leave some of this on if you want. I mean, bacon grease tastes awesome. Alright, then grab a pan and throw it on the stove. I'm going to say medium to medium high heat. And then just throw a pat of butter in there. Get that butter nice and melted, and then come in with the finest of white breads. Let those guys go until they're a nice golden brown. Once you're happy with that, we're going to give these guys a little flip. I'm not going to let these go for as long. I just want to give it a little kiss on the pan and get it in some butter. Alright, time to assemble. The only acceptable condiment to put on a BLT is mayonnaise. The only exception to this rule is if you wanted to mix in a little bit of hot sauce for some acidity, but that's it. Alright, so mayo goes on bread. Alright, so grab a nice handful of shredded lettuce, pile that up tall. Like I said, this is going to give it some nice crunch, but it's also going to act as kind of like a barrier so that your tomatoes don't make the bread all soggy. And then just grab your tomatoes. I'm going to use 3 here, stack them up, and we're on to the bacon. So start piling that bacon on nice and high. And if you ever find yourself debating if you can fit one more strip of bacon, the answer is yes. Throw that guy on there, and boom, you've constructed a masterpiece. Alright, so now it comes time for the grandest cross section of them all. And
oh, fuck.
even pros make mistakes, so would you look at that? It's a goddamn timeless classic. Alright, so I just have to take one more minute and just say thank you to Kemp one more time for making this awesome Quarantine Cooks logo for me. Man, I absolutely love it. The more I look at it, the more I appreciate all those little details that went into this. And seriously, if you ever need anything done, you gotta put his name at the top of the list. His Instagram's right here. Thanks, Kemp.